Most folks plan for a ranch patrol based on what they hope will happen. They picture stepping off the porch, hitting the lights, and finding the problem standing right by the barn. But that is not how the worst patrol night works. The worst night means the lights do not reach. It means walking through tall, wet grass and out to the fence line in pitch black. It means opening gates with one hand, having absolutely no idea what is making that noise in the brush. If you only get to carry one gun into that unpredictable mess, the easy answers fail fast. We are not looking for the most powerful gun. We want the one firearm that gives you the least regret when the distance and target change at the exact same time. This is the one-gun ranch patrol test. To find the answer, we have to start with the weapon everyone reaches for first, only to realize it leaves them exposed the further they walk. When you hear a noise outside, the first thing most of us think of is the 12-gauge pump, specifically a gun like the Mossberg 500. There is a good reason for that instinct. If a coyote is near the chicken coop, or if a predator is standing right outside the barn door, a pump shotgun is the ultimate problem solver. It is a barnyard hammer. You do not need to overthink the situation. You load it with heavy buckshot, point it at the threat, and it ends the conversation immediately. It is deeply familiar to anyone who grew up around firearms. They are mechanically simple, rugged, and they work even if they have been sitting in the corner of the shop collecting dust. For a lot of older rural owners, the 12-gauge is the end of the ranch patrol conversation. But here is the problem. That logic only works if the threat is standing exactly where you expect it to be. The worst patrol night does not usually cooperate like that. What if the noise is not in the barn? What if it is way out by the tree line? What if you realize the wild hogs tearing up your pasture are 60 yards out and moving fast? A shotgun is devastating up close, but the further you step away from the porch, the faster it loses its advantage. Buckshot spreads out and loses energy. Slugs hit hard, but they drop fast and kick like a mule, making follow-up shots in the dark a chore. You cannot leave a shotgun loaded with buckshot and expect it to handle a distant threat. You would have to manually transition to a slug in the dark, which requires fine motor skills under extreme stress. And let us be honest about carrying a pump shotgun. They get heavy. The ammunition is bulky. If you are walking a long fence line, trudging through mud, trying to manage a light and a long barrel, that 12-gauge starts to feel like a liability. You are carrying a weapon that demands the threat be up close, while walking into a dark space where the threat could be anywhere. It forces a massive trade-off when the distance stretches out. That does not make the Mossberg bad. It just means it is a specialized tool for close-range chaos. When you add distance and uncertainty, you wish for something that shoots flat and carries easier. For a new Mossberg 500, you are looking at an MSRP of around $504, with street prices usually hanging closer to $400. The shotgun wins the barn, but patrol nights do not always stay near the barn. This brings us to the lever-action .44 Magnum, a gun that just feels right in your hands. A rifle like the Henry Big Boy carries a tremendous amount of nostalgia, but it is not just about looks. There is a deep practical reason why lever actions have been riding in pickup trucks and on four-wheelers for generations. It is a fast-handling, flat-sided, perfectly balanced piece of machinery. When you pull it out of the scabbard, it naturally points exactly where you look. For a lot of folks dealing with coyotes, wild dogs, or medium-sized hogs at moderate ranges, a .44 Magnum out of a rifle barrel hits with serious authority. It gives you more reach than the shotgun, but it does not feel overly tactical or complicated. It is just an honest, hard-working ranch rifle. It carries incredibly well on a sling, slips through thick brush without hanging up, and does not terrify the neighbors if they happen to see you walking the property line. But that old-school charm comes with a severe cost when the conditions turn ugly. The .44 Magnum is a fantastic cartridge, but it is still a pistol caliber. When the distance stretches past 100 yards, that big heavy bullet starts dropping fast. If you are standing out in the pasture in pitch black, scanning with a light, and you spot a group of hogs moving quickly at a distance, trying to calculate the drop of a .44 Magnum in the dark is a losing game. The sights are another major issue. Most traditional lever guns come with buckhorn sights or a simple brass bead. Those are great for a sunny afternoon, but they are nearly invisible when you are dealing with shadows and a cheap flashlight. You can mount an optic on some models, but then you fight the balance and cheek weld that made the gun so appealing in the first place. Reloading is another huge factor. If you actually empty the tube, reloading a side gate in the dark with cold fingers is a slow, tedious process. If you drop a loose round in the mud, you are out of luck. The manual of arms requires fine motor skills, which disappear when adrenaline spikes. The Henry Big Boy is a beautiful, capable rifle that excels in daylight and comfortable distances. But the worst patrol night is about uncertainty. When the threat is further than you thought, moving faster than you expected, and you cannot see your sights, the old ranch gun shows its age. You realize you are trading modern capability for tradition, and out in the dark, tradition does not stop a threat. A Henry Big Boy 44 Magnum carries an MSRP of about $970, with street prices around $850. The lever gun feels right until the problem is further than it wants to be. Up to this point, we have been looking at tools that rely on close-range power in history. But what happens when you need something completely different? What happens when you trade walnut and steel for modern aluminum because the night demands capacity, light, and less weight? That is where the argument shifts, starting a debate that divides almost every rural gun owner. When you finally decide to leave tradition behind and prioritize absolute practicality, you end up with the lightweight 5.56 AR-15, something like the standard Colt 6920. This is easily the most convenient, easiest to carry rifle on this list, and for a long patrol night, that matters more than most people admit. If you have to wake up at 2 in the morning, pull on your boots, grab a flashlight, and walk half a mile through wet grass and mud to check a broken fence, weight is your enemy. A lightweight AR-15 shoulders effortlessly. It does not drag you down. But the real advantage is how it handles the dark. This platform was designed to accept modern accessories without a fuss. You can mount a high-quality weapon light right where your thumb naturally rests. You can run a red dot sight that gives you a glowing, unmistakable aiming point even in pitch black. When you are tired, cold, and trying to figure out what is moving in the brush, having a clear sight picture and immediate light is a massive advantage. Recoil is virtually non-existent, meaning if you miss your first shot, your sights are already back on the target for the second. And if you stumble into a pack of coyotes, having a standard 30-round magazine means you never have to worry about reloading in the dark. For wild dogs, coyotes, and general property defense, the 5.56 AR-15 is arguably the most efficient tool ever designed. But this is the easy rifle that starts a hard argument. The controversy always comes down to one word: hogs. For a lot of rural owners, the question is not whether the 5.56 can kill a wild hog. With good shot placement and the right ammunition, of course it can. The real question is whether you want to bet your safety on it when a massive, thick-skinned boar suddenly charges out of the brush at 20 yards in the dead of night. This is where the lightweight 5.56 starts to lose the confidence of the old-school crowd. It is a fast, light bullet. It relies on velocity and fragmentation to do its work. But hogs have thick shoulder shields, dense bone, and a habit of not going down easily unless you hit the central nervous system. In a chaotic, low-light situation where perfect shot placement goes out the window, a lot of folks do not trust the 5.56 to anchor a large animal fast enough. You might hit it, but if it runs off into the thicket, you still have a dangerous, wounded animal on your property. This rifle is the ultimate in ease of use, handling, and modern capability. It takes all the physical strain out of the ranch patrol. But the trade-off is that nagging voice in the back of your head asking if you brought enough gun for the worst-case scenario. It solves the problem of the dark, but it leaves you questioning your authority over the target. An MSRP for a standard Colt 6920 is around $1,099, with street prices settling near $900. The AR-15 is the rifle you want to carry, but the worst patrol night may ask for more than easy carry. Before we go higher, I want to know where you stand on this. Would you trust the older, proven design? Or would you still take the newer platform if things got ugly? Up to this point, we have been talking about guns that make sense individually, focusing heavily on what is easy to carry and what feels familiar in the hands. But the next part is where the whole ranking changes. Because now we are not talking about convenience, we are talking about what happens when you let the absolute worst-case scenario completely take over your decision-making. What happens when the only thing you can think about is a massive feral boar tearing up your pasture, and you want to make absolutely sure that whatever you shoot does not take another step towards you in the dark. That is when a lot of folks abandon the lightweight platforms and reach for pure, unadulterated, blunt force trauma. Enter the 450 Bushmaster AR Platform. If the lightweight 5.56 is the easy carry, the 450 Bushmaster is the ultimate hog hammer. When you build or buy an AR-15 specifically chambered in 450 Bushmaster, you are making a very clear statement about what you expect to find out in the brush. Mechanically, it gives you the exact same controls, the exact same manual of arms, and the exact same modularity as a standard AR-15. You can mount your familiar lights, your preferred optics, and your comfortable sling. But instead of sending a tiny 55-grain projectile downrange, you are launching a massive piece of lead that hits like a freight train. The engineering behind this straight-walled cartridge was specifically tailored to deliver devastating terminal ballistics on large, tough animals at short to medium ranges. If you step out of your truck, hit the tree line with your spotlight, and see a group of hogs rooting around your fence line, the 450 Bushmaster is arguably the most comforting rifle you could possibly have against your shoulder. It solves the ethical and practical problem of the 5.56 instantly. You do not have to worry about perfect shot placement through thick shoulder cartilage. If you do your part, the 450 simply crushes bone and anchors the threat. It is a spectacular piece of specialized equipment, but that specialization is exactly why it sits at the number 2 spot and not number 1. The worst patrol night is not ugly because you know you are walking into a pack of hogs. It is ugly because you do not know what is out there at all. And when you carry a 450 Bushmaster into the unknown, you are carrying a massive amount of compromise. Let us talk about recoil and muzzle blast. Shooting a 450 out of a relatively lightweight aluminum rifle produces a tremendous amount of muzzle rise, which is something older shoulders often want to avoid. If you miss your first shot in the dark, or if there are multiple threats moving fast, getting your sights back on target takes significantly longer than it does with a smaller caliber. More importantly, the muzzle flash from a short-barreled 450 in pitch-black conditions is blinding. It will wash out your night vision instantly, leaving you completely vulnerable in the dark while you try to recover. Then there is the capacity issue. Because of the sheer size of the straight-walled cartridge, you are not carrying 30 rounds in a standard magazine. You are usually limited to 5 or 7 rounds in a specialized single-stack configuration. If the noise out by the barn turns out to be a pack of wild dogs scattering in multiple directions, your massive hog hammer suddenly feels incredibly limiting. You are constantly managing your ammunition count, hoping you do not run dry. Furthermore, the ammunition is heavy, expensive, and not something you can just find at every small-town hardware store. You have to order it, hoard it, and make sure your rifle is specifically tuned to run it reliably. The 450 Bushmaster is an incredibly powerful answer to a very specific problem. It is the absolute king of the hog hunters. But as a general-purpose patrol rifle, it is simply too much gun, too much recoil, and too little capacity for a night where the threat could be absolutely anything. An MSRP for a quality complete upper or a full factory rifle like the Ruger AR-56 and 450 Bushmaster sits around $1,200, with street prices closer to $1,000 depending on the configuration. The 450 Bushmaster is the answer when you know it is hogs. But the worst patrol night is ugly because you do not know. This brings us to the final answer, the one rifle that stops trying to be perfect at everything and instead focuses on never being wrong. We have walked through the barnyard power of the 12-gauge, the nostalgic comfort of the lever-action 44, the easy-carrying nature of the 5.56, and the specialized devastation of the 450 Bushmaster. Every single one of those firearms forces you to make a painful compromise when the conditions change. They demand that the threat matches their specific strengths. But the worst patrol night does not care about what your rifle is good at. The worst night is a chaotic mix of unknown distances, unknown targets, and exhausting physical conditions. You need a rifle that does not care if the problem is 50 yards away or 300 yards away. You need a rifle that hits hard enough to stop a massive feral boar, but carries enough capacity to handle a pack of coyotes. You need the one-gun answer for an ugly night. And for the rural American property owner who wants to buy one serious tool and never look back, that answer is the compact 308 rifle, specifically represented by the Springfield M1A Scout Squad. This rifle does not take the #1 spot because it is flawless. In fact, if you look at a spec sheet, it seems to lose to modern platforms in several categories. It is not as light or ergonomic as an AR-15. It does not hit with the sheer close-range trauma of a pump-action shotgun. It does not have the fast-handling cowboy charm of a lever gun. But the M1A Scout Squad wins because it delivers a relentless, undeniable balance of power, reach, and mechanical reliability that the other platforms simply cannot match when the situation goes completely sideways. Let us start with the engineering. The M1A Scout Squad takes the legendary, battle-proven action of the M14 and chops the barrel down to a very manageable 18 inches. This transforms a long, unwieldy traditional battle rifle into a fast-handling brush gun that still retains the devastating ballistic advantages of the 308 Winchester cartridge. The Garand-style rotating bolt and operating rod assembly is incredibly robust. It is the definition of overbuilt machinery, the kind of traditional durability that older generations of American men grew up trusting. If you are trudging through muddy pastures, pushing through wet brush, and banging the rifle against the metal frame of a gate in the pitch black, this action is not going to fail you. It is designed to run dirty, clear debris, and chamber the next round with absolute authority. But the real magic of this platform lies in the chambering. The .308 Winchester is the ultimate problem solver for the property owner. If you shine your light out toward the fence line and see a coyote stalking your livestock at 200 yards, the .308 shoots incredibly flat and carries more than enough energy to drop it in its tracks. You do not have to worry about the massive bullet drop of a .44 Magnum. If you turn the corner of the barn and find yourself face to face with a massive, aggressive hog at 20 yards, the .308 has the deep penetration, weight retention, and kinetic energy to anchor that threat immediately. You do not have to second-guess your caliber the way you would with a lightweight 5.56. And unlike the .450 Bushmaster, the .308 Winchester allows you to carry 20 rounds of full-power ammunition in a standard, reliable box magazine. You get the power of a heavy hitter with the capacity of a modern patrol rifle. You also gain the advantage of universal ammunition availability. You can walk into any hardware store or sporting goods shop in rural America and find a box of .308 hunting ammunition on the shelf. The Scout Squad also features a forward scout rail, allowing you to mount a long eye relief optic or a red dot sight well forward of the receiver. This keeps your peripheral vision wide open, which is absolutely critical when you are scanning the dark with both eyes open, trying to catch movement in the shadows. The trade-off, and the reason you have to trust this system before you buy it, is the weight. The M1A Scout Squad is a heavy piece of wood and steel, or fiberglass and steel depending on your stock choice. By the time you add a loaded 20-round magazine, a heavy-duty sling, and a weapon light, you are going to feel it pulling on your shoulder. It will tire you out faster than an aluminum carbine. But that weight is exactly what makes the .308 manageable. The mass of the rifle absorbs the recoil, allowing you to stay on target for follow-up shots much faster than you could with a lighter, harder-kicking rifle. When you are out in the mud, cold, tired, and facing an unknown threat, that solid, heavy feeling in your hands turns into pure psychological confidence. It is a serious tool for a serious night. You are never undergunned, you are never out of range, and you are never wishing you had brought something else. The MSRP for a Springfield M1A Scout Squad sits around $2,100, with street prices generally floating near $1,800. Planning for the worst patrol night means accepting that easy answers usually fall short. We started with the close range power of the 12-gauge pump and the comfort of the 44 lever action, only to see them struggle as distance increased. We looked at the lightweight convenience of the 5.56, but questioned its authority against larger threats. We even examined the blunt force of the .450 Bushmaster, only to realize that carrying a specialized hog hammer limits your response to an unpredictable situation. This test is not about finding flawless machinery. It is about choosing a tool that refuses to be entirely wrong, no matter what is making that noise past the tree line. A compact .308 might ask you to carry more weight through the mud, but it repays that burden with undeniable confidence. The real question is whether you are willing to trade a little comfort for capability when it matters most. If you're watching from the living room couch, pull out your phone, open up the YouTube app, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Gunforge, signing off.